You are listening to This Week in Clown World with Ben and Hobbs, so sit back, relax, take your black pill, and enjoy the show.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of This Week in Clown World. I think it's safe to say that we are back.
We're back.
Yes, we are back. If you guys haven't figured it out, there was a election this week, and defying the will of the deep state, the Hollywood elite, the academic elite, the Washington insiders, the mainstream media, basically everybody who looks down on you thinking that their position in life tells you that you deserve how to live. Donald Trump is now the second president in history to have achieved non-consecutive terms in office, which I think in celebration of this achievement, he needs to grow a Grover Cleveland beard.
I don't know why he doesn't grow a beard. I mean, he's got the jawline for it. He's an older male. Obviously, his testosterone's still high enough. It'd be a great beard, I'm sure of it.
It'll be a stupendous beard, tremendous beard, the best beard ever. Yeah, I've seen the AI-generated pictures of Trump with a big beard, and it doesn't look bad. So maybe he could pull it off, or maybe he's like me and he just grows like a rat nest full of pubes on his face.
Well, I guess let's start at the election night. I mean, the left gave up early.
Yeah, they did, and it was a blowout by just about any measure. I think 307 electoral college votes, the popular vote, 9-seat majority in the Senate, and I think it's going to be a narrow majority in the House, but it's still going to be a majority in the House. A 6-3 majority on the Supreme Court. This is about as close to a mandate as an elected politician is likely to get in these times.
Yeah, the interesting thing was after all the vote totals came in, we bring it up a lot, the meme, are we the baddies? the left was like, did we cheat? I mean, they were starting to wonder themselves. Your rank and file Democrats were like, did we cheat last election? What's going on here?
Yeah, the side by side chart. I think you shared it to one of the group chats
Mhm.
today of the 2012, 2016, 2020, and 2024 elections. It's practically a straight line with a slight uphill bend until you get to 2020, and it's like almost a third
Mhm.
more. And yeah, even some left wing people were like, "Holy shit, maybe we did cheat in 2020."
And when you break it down by numbers, I got a little bored, so I pulled up, state by state 2020 results and state by state 2024 results. And the swing states, you're looking at 100 to 200,000 votes that are just not there for Harris, that were there for Biden. And then you get to the solid blue states, like California is missing. The votes were still coming in, but they're missing almost 2 million votes.
Mhm.
New York was missing almost 1 million votes.
Right. And to lose, and Trump even lost like 1 million votes total in the entire.
But he got votes where it counted.
Right. Well, yeah, and the thing is that a lot of people were like, if Trump, with the amount of energy and enthusiasm that we saw in this election cycle compared to the 2020 election cycle, you would expect Trump to get more than he did, but he didn't. And with the amount of Orange Man bad, second coming of Hitler, you would expect Kamala to do better than she did, but they were missing like 14 million votes that were there
Mhm.
in 2020. So it's getting to the point where people are asking fraud or double counting votes, but with the way that a lot of states, especially Democrat leaning states, actually conduct their election, and the massive amounts of mail-in ballots in 2020, the theory I've seen out there is like maybe there wasn't as I mean, there's going to be cheating, there's going to be fraud
Mhm.
in every election, but it's like maybe this was just a monumental mistake of some people's ballots getting counted more than once in certain areas because they had the mail-in balloting. I work with a guy right now who's a part-time contractor, and he's from California. And in California, they have like mandatory mail-in ballots.
Mhm.
If you're a registered voter, you get mailed a ballot, whether you requested one or not, and you can fill it out and mail it back in, or you can fill it out and take it to the polling place and turn it in for an in-person ballot. And I'm like,
Hmm.
that right there is like you get somebody who comes in, they fill out their mail-in ballot, they take it to a polling place, they turn it in, they get an in-person ballot, and then with the chaos of the 2020 election, coming off of COVID and coming off of just the sheer number of mail-in ballots, the opportunity for those mail-in ballots to be counted and the in-person ballots to be counted by mistake, not out and out fraud, but by mistake,
Yeah.
is high. So I think that might have been what happened in places like New York and California.
Well, I saw an interesting thread on Reddit. I hang out in the lefty subs there because just to see how they think. And to lead into this, I've talked about how, in politics, if the Republicans realize the Dems were cheating, they've already set the rules of the game that, okay, cheating's okay. So if they're not putting a stop to it or doing it themselves, they're just setting themselves up for failure.
Hmm.
So in this subreddit, they were wondering, like, where the hell did all these votes go? And how did Trump seem to get all these votes in critical, and I'm not saying this is what happened, in
Hmm.
critical areas. And they're like, yeah, because they have all this election security in the cities now. There's no other way they can cheat. And this guy's like, well, but what if the people out in the rural areas were throwing in 1,000 votes here and there? Are Democrats watching out in the Republican controlled areas? And somebody was like, uh-oh. It's like if they decided they wanted to they hypothetically said if we pulled shenanigans in the cities and the Republicans kept us from doing it, were we making sure the Republicans weren't doing the same trick to us? And they were just like, no, not at all.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing that makes see, I don't think that's the case though,
No, but
because you do have
I don't know. I'm just saying that it could be the Republicans realized what the play was, so they were like,
Mhm,
all right, well, we can do it. They did it to us, we can do it to them.
right. I think that it comes it really comes down though to you had Laura Trump was the co-chair of the RNC, and her team that she assembled to make sure that poll watching actually went down, especially in places where things looked a little bit hinky. I think that was probably one of the biggest contributors to the victory on Tuesday
Oh,
night.
exactly. I think it was a great idea. The Republicans were watching the polls in areas where Democrats would pull shit, but
Yeah,
apparently the Democrats didn't consider it at all. But maybe the Republicans would pull the same shit on them since they've already fucked them over in one election.
yeah, it's a possibility, but I find it unlikely because once they go back and they'll forensically audit it, it's like, oh, this
Oh, but they can't. They've said all elections are secure.
well, you know that if the Washington Democrats didn't have double standards, they'd have no standards at all.
Right.
Yeah, so
I mean, they've
they'll
preached for 8
contest it.
years. They've preached for 8 years how secure everything is, and we don't have to worry about it. So they basically gave the GOP carte blanche to go cheat because
Right.
they've laid out that everything's secure. Nobody has anything to worry about.
Right, right. But I think that the GOP wouldn't cheat because they know if they got caught, they'd have every mechanism in the entire country turned against them to blow it out of proportion. And
Mhm.
that's just not the GOP style. We've talked about this before that the GOP has an almost religious reverence to the institutions of this country. And I think that they would rather lose honorably than win by cheating, because then to them the thing that they're trying to uphold, because they're conservatives, their job is to conserve things, and if they don't conserve the institution of the election process, then what are they doing, right?
Right. So yeah, they put a stop to a lot of that stuff. I mean, Arizona's still counting because they tried to get rid of all the fuckery that happened there.
Yeah.
I guess it's one of the strictest ballot counting processes in the nation. They like compare your signature that you have on file to the signature on your ballot, and if they have any qualms that it's not correct, they're like calling you up, come down here, you got to re-sign.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Good. Fine. Yeah. Pennsylvania, though, was the hinge upon which the entire election went. The path to victory was through Pennsylvania, and I think that there's one person and one group of people that have to be thanked above all, and
The
that's a
Amish.
guy, the Amish. The Amish were mobilized because they saw the FDA coming after their businesses. They do organic farming. They sell raw milk. They do a lot of field to
Have the
table.
Amish ever voted? I don't know that they've ever voted in anything. Just as a principle, they don't, I believe.
No, it's not as a group. You will get one or two here or there that'll like mobilize their family or their little community, but for the Amish to come out as a demographic block to cast votes is very rare and also incredibly hard to mobilize because they don't use phones or the internet.
Mhm.
So the guy who is chiefly responsible for getting that group of people motivated is a man named Scott Pressler. He is the guy who he was going to gun shows and registering voters. He was going to Amish farms and communities and registering voters. He was letting these people who otherwise might not have known what was actually going on in the rest of the country politically involved. And he and the Amish are probably the two people and groups of people that need to be thanked above anybody else for swinging Pennsylvania.
The other swing one was in Michigan, the Muslim vote.
Yep.
I mean, some places Harris came in third.
Yeah, a lot of Muslims cast votes for Jill Stein.
Yeah, they had some idea. I mean, she was the only one who was actually against Zionism, so they were thinking they could get her on the debate stage if she got enough votes, but nationwide, they don't hold that much of a voting block. There was no way.
No. Or a lot of
But
them voted NOTA on the presidential.
Allah bless them, I guess, for for pulling together. Wisconsin, it just, you know, there's a lot of, I never understood how Wisconsin was blue to begin with after spending, you know, a week and a half there.
Yeah.
That's solid blue collar, good old American state.
It's the same as Illinois. You've got a sparsely populated, deep red state with one or two heavily populated college towns. And that's what swings Wisconsin and Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
Wisconsin,
yeah, Illinois wasn't even close, so
no, because they got the Chicago machine out there going.
Yeah, but yeah, the votes started coming in, and I think Harris' team wrapped it up at like 10 o'clock. It was reported Joe Biden went to bed at 9:30.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just a shit show of a campaign. We got into our group chat that that the Harris campaign raised over $1 billion and they're 20 million in the hole.
Yeah, and did you see that? Did you watch that video I sent you of the DNC? She's on the DNC Central Committee. She was an Asian lady, and she was just pissed at the campaign because, you know, they were giving everybody raising money for the Harris campaign all impressions that, yeah, we're gonna win this, or it's gonna be close. So she was going out hitting donors up for money left and right, like, hey, we're gonna win this. And then it comes out not even close. And she's like, these people are pissed at me. You know, They signed big checks over, and I told them that it was going to be a close race. We need to get this money in there. And it was a blowout.
Yeah. Yeah, it really was. Simon is over in our chats. We were hoping to have Nathan on tonight, but he's not. So maybe I'll send the link to Simon, and we'll
yeah, Simon can pop in here. He can tell us what it was like in Florida. I mean, Florida called early. Miami went. I mean, that was one of the biggest swings in the nation.
Yeah, hang on, Simon. I'm going to send you the link, and you can just go ahead and jump in whenever you're ready here. But yeah. Miami-Dade went 18 points to the right, which was craziness. Absolutely.
And craziness. I wouldn't think that's all the Jewish vote, because there's no reason Trump would have cornered the Jewish vote.
That's Cubans.
Cubans, okay.
Yes, that would be the Cubans deciding to come out against what they viewed as gay race communism.
Maybe Cubans have a specific hatred of Puerto Ricans too. So when
now I really wish Nathan was here. We could get the inside scoop on the Cuban Puerto Rican rivalry.
Yeah,
rumble in the Caribbean.
And it's interesting, you know, for some reason I'm just drawn to watching the left stuff because it's more entertaining than the right stuff. They don't seem to have learned anything.
No.
It's like that Simpsons where Skinner's like, are the students wrong, or is it me that's wrong?
No, the students are the ones who are incorrect. Yeah. It's just absolutely ridiculous the way that the no introspection at all.
Yeah, right away they were blaming all of America instead of their shitty platform and values of why America had left them.
Yeah.
So I guess for the near future, it's GOP all around, I suppose, till they can get their shit together, which is fine since they've run out the Cheneys and the Romneys of the party.
Which is always a good thing when the Cheneys and the Romneys have a bad day. That's good for the rest of America. Simon's asking if we saw Dugin today. No, I didn't see anything from Dugin today. I haven't been paying much attention to the news for the past couple of weeks because, like I said last week, I've had a class that I've been going to during the day, so I couldn't really listen to much of anything at all during the day. But Simon, I sent you the link in your Twitter inbox. You can go ahead and jump in if you want to tell us what it was with Dugin. But yeah, I mean, I was listening to it for a while on election night. I think I called it in about 11:30 at night because, like I said, had these classes where I had to be there early in the morning, and yeah, it was like, yeah, this is kind of in the bag. I think once they called Pennsylvania, I think is when I went to sleep, because I'm just like, that it's over now.
Well, and I still wasn't convinced there wasn't going to be some, 3 a.m. ballots like last time, but it just became too much of a hill for them to climb to close that gap. And I don't know. It seems like the left is going to realize the same thing the right did, that the media is just lying to them. And this election, I think, might finally be the death of the old media, because the base that they were pandering to, they spent the last 8 years lying to them. First telling them that there was no problems with Joe Biden, and then telling them that Kamala Harris is his wonder candidate.
Right. And being lied to like that is usually enough to drive people away. But in the last few days, I've just seen people coming up with any excuse. Like on The View, one of them was like, there's a border county that Donald Trump, it's 97% Latino, and Donald Trump won 75% of the Latino vote. He's like, whichever host was like, how did that happen? And Whoopi Goldberg, like, instinctually just goes, misogyny. And it's like, no, Donald Trump didn't win 75% of the Latino vote in a 97% Latino district on the border of Texas because of misogyny. He won that vote because you idiots left the border hanging wide open, and they've got drug mules and human trafficking and God knows what else coming through their ranches and their farms, just fucking up their life. That's why. It wasn't misogyny, you dumb bitch.
Let me drop Simon in here. Simon, you there?
Hi there, guys.
Hey, Simon.
How you doing?
Thank you. It's a pleasure to speak with you. I wasn't trying to be pushy onto your show. I just thought I'd send you that clip that Robert Kennedy had put out, suggesting that Trump had already justified a place on Mount Rushmore by his avowed intention to restore free speech in America, per the video that he's put out today.
Yeah, these slow rolls of platform that he's been putting out. I guess he's just edginess until he actually gets in office.
It struck me, and I discussed this on my show last night, that it seems fantastically dangerous when you have 70 days out to be telling the deep state more than 2 months in advance how you're going to fuck them up.
Yeah, his 10-point plan that he put out 2 days ago to what was it, like a constitutional amendment to impose term limits and to break up the intelligence apparatus's ability, reform the FISA courts. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that one there. I'm sitting there listening to it, just harder than a diamond in an ice storm, and I'm like, they killed JFK for less.
Much less.
So it's going to be
that was when he was in office.
Yeah.
Trump's not even there yet. So he's threatening all these people who have all of the power, and he has nothing but the bully pulpit.
Right. He's got the bully pulpit and the mandate of heaven for more than half the country has kind of voted for him. I mean, a lot of people will get shot and miss having their heads splattered out on live TV by less than an inch and take that as maybe I ought to cool my jets. But he seems to have taken that as, I've got the power of God and anime on my side, or something like that. He's like, I'm invincible. Come at me, bro.
Yeah, well, I don't know about invincible. He seems to think that he's Mr. Invisible, but unfortunately he's not, right?
Well, yeah. And the Vance, you got Vance behind him there. They got to consider that if they get rid of Trump, they have Vance in there.
Yep.
Well, maybe that's part of the plan, right?
It's possible.
And then if you get rid of Vance, who would it be? The Speaker of the House?
No. I think Vance is enough, certainly connection to people like Peter Thiel, right, and Palantir.
Yeah, that is true. He does have some shady stuff in his past, but also at the same time, I'm like, he's put in a pretty good showing on the podcasts and whatever that he's gone on. He just kind of speaks like a regular dude. And he's a Marine corporal, so the E4 Mafia would be running the show.
Well, we know in history, Army corporals have made big influences, right?
Oh, boy.
Yep.
Somewhere between 14 and 88 influences, I
Yes,
think.
indeed.
I think the news has made enough Hitler references towards the Trump Vance ticket that we don't need to pile on.
Well,
Pile on that
he's literally Hitler, isn't he? So you can just say that stuff and it doesn't even matter.
Yeah, that's what we keep being told. So, Simon, you brought up something with Alexander Dugin. What's that all about today?
So Dugin put out an initial reaction to Trump that was extremely ambivalent, and then he's putting quite.
Uh-oh. I think we lost you. Ah, shit.
We did lose him.
All right. Well, you'll have to log off and log back in, Simon, if you can hear us, because I think you're.
Our discussion group.
Hey, Simon. Hey, you're gonna have to log out and log back in because we got absolutely nothing of that.
Sure, I'll do that.
You just said.
Okay.
All right, we'll see you in a couple minutes.
Am I thinking of a different Dugin, or is he talking about the Ruski?
Yeah, the Russian guy that's oftentimes referred to as Putin's brain.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of Putin's advisors. Yeah, so we'll wait till he comes back on and he can explain what exactly Dugin was saying. But I know that Putin congratulated Trump on the win and said that they have no plans now to pull out of the dollar. And China said something about it too, like the stock markets have gone through the roof. It's like when I say we're back, I think we're back.
Yeah, China got whooped in the yuan or whatever versus the dollar.
Yeah, Simon, you there? Can you hear us?
I can.
Okay, cool. Let's try this again. Start from the top because you said Dugin, and then after that it was nothing.
Sure. So Dugin put out an initial comment on X, and in the meantime, he was knocking up an article that was being produced on Artos, which is where he sometimes puts his thoughts. It's not particularly long. Often they're very, very long, but this one isn't. It's probably about 3 pages. And I think this. I listened to Putin's Valdai comments. I listened to the whole, 4.5 hours and stuff. And a lot of his comments came in response to a really vague and rambling question from Professor Glenn Diesen of South Norway University. And because basically the question didn't have a question mark at the end, it wasn't really a question, it was more of a statement. Putin just decided what the hell, and he talked for 11 minutes in response. Mm-hmm. And he actually specifically said, I'm going to take this moment to congratulate Trump as part of this very far-ranging answer to a non-question that revealed a lot of stuff, actually, including a conversation that he had translated between the mayor of St. Petersburg and Helmut Kohl in 1983, when Helmut Kohl supposedly had said that the only prospect for European independence from America was by allying with Russia, which is extremely interesting in itself. But Trump today said that he'd been called by 70 world leaders, and he was quite miffed that he hadn't been called by Putin. Now, he wasn't called by Xi either, but apparently nobody had told him that at this marathon 4-hour question and answer session that Putin literally did until 1 o'clock in the morning on Thursday, that he had offered his congratulations to Trump in a public forum, albeit that he hadn't telephoned him privately. Okay, so I thought that was a huge revelation that Trump isn't being informed of what Putin is saying. That in and of itself is extremely important, because he talked about how he'd respond to peace overtures and a lot of foreign policy issues specifically relating to America that Trump should have been handed a transcript of, saying, look at these attempts to outreach. Now, Dugin has interpreted Trump's victory and what he perceives as being Putin's response to it. So this is very, very significant, albeit that I fear it may be a misinterpretation, which is dangerous in and of itself. And that Dugin thinks that because Trump's won, that is a reflection of America, lock, stock, and barrel, rejecting transgenderism, LGBTQ, American hegemonism, neocolonialism, all these types of things. And personally, with a fairly well-informed opinion, I hazard a guess that is grossly overestimating the amount of weight that Americans, one, gave in the election, and two, have been allowed to learn about, or three, have self-educated about. I think all of those are very, very low percentage numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always a problem, and this is what they call confirmation bias, where the result that you wanted happens, and you automatically believe that it happened because of the reason that you were forecasting it was going to happen. It may be a complete coincidence, and it has nothing to do with any of the reasons that you said. So your entire premise may be utterly false. And that's the trap that Dugin seems to be falling in. And it bothers me greatly if other parts of the Russian establishment are making a similar mistake, because it's exactly that misunderstanding, whether it's of a friend or adversary, that leads to really negative long-term consequences.
Right. So I'm actually kind of glad that you kind of wove that in there about Alexander Dugin seems to be putting the culture war stuff at a higher priority than you and frankly me seem to think that the American citizens are putting it, because to me this election was more of a mandate on fixing the border and unfucking the economy, getting our energy independence back, the stuff that makes our lives
inflation.
easier. And yeah, exactly, inflation, unfucking
Well,
the
because
economy.
look at what his frame of reference is. Look how bad Russia's inflation is now. I mean, maybe our economy to a Russian doesn't look like it's doing that bad.
Right. But to kind of dovetail in these things, on Friday on Alex Jones's show, he interviewed Victor Boot, who was that arms dealer that we traded the basketball player for. He's back over in Russia now, and he's fairly well connected. And that was one of the things too that he brought up specifically, was that Americans voting for Donald Trump and in the blowout numbers that they did is a refutation of the LBGT, gay, tranny shit getting shoved down everybody's faces all of the time. So there seems to be, I don't know if it's like a lost in translation, or maybe the Russians are just seeing something that we're not paying attention to, or I mean, being
well, I mean,
close
I can possibly explain that, because
Yeah.
Trump made a big point about not having men in women's sports. Okay?
Right. Yeah.
And like apparently the latest poll out on that is like 85% of Americans agree with that. All right.
Yeah.
So that was a winner, but that wasn't a total refutation of like gay rights.
Right.
No.
And so the Russians are thinking, oh, because he wants to ban what they perceive as being either gay or transgender in women's sports, they think he's totally overturning like 75 years of American gay rights. And that's not anywhere close to how far he's going.
So do they view that as being more of a culturally and electorally significant part of what they've got going over there as
because
opposed to
they're taking that from a point of view that it's so evil that it's actually satanic, and to embrace that is against Christianity.
Okay.
And so particularly Dugan, who's very interested in kind of eschatology and the end of times and stuff. And don't forget, they've got this whole concept of the Catchacon, right? That Dugan suggests Putin is the Catchacon, and that's the person who keeps the Antichrist bound, which prevents Armageddon from occurring. It's all complicated kind of Russian Orthodoxy mythology. But I mean, it's like, telling a Muslim resistance fighter that, it's ridiculous to talk about martyrdom, when that's the entire crux of their belief system. So, I mean, I do think that I think that there's a big risk, particularly as there are, if not anti-Russian neocons wheedling their way into the State Department, then definitely anti-Iranian neocons. This guy Brian Hook is crazy anti the Ayatollahs.
Right.
Well,
And
I was glad to see Trump, speaking of neocons, said,
he ruled out
Pompeo
Pompeo
and Haley won't be in
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I'm looking at some things here because that's kind of what I wanted to pivot to, with some of these cabinet positions that he's
Sure.
saying that he's, people who he's saying that he's looking at, and people that he's saying that are definitely not invited to the party. Pompeo.
Well, I don't know how Pompeo, I mean, Fox News and it seemed like all the conservative media was throwing Pompeo out there. Were they just hoping that Trump would pick him, or what? I don't know what the fuck was going on with that. It's like,
Well, Pompeo's been groveling for months, and he even kind of like gave some quote where he was described as being the most loyal cabinet member of the first Trump administration.
which isn't saying much. Shit.
Right. Yeah. So some of the things that I'm seeing here is they wanted Mike Pompeo to be like Secretary of State, and somebody threw out Marco Rubio as like Defense Secretary or something.
Yeah, it appears to be the other way round, and Rubio does seem to be still in consideration. But this is a point that I made also yesterday, that Trump's on a knife edge in the House, and supposedly there's a short list of like 4 or 5 Republican House members being considered for cabinet posts. If he plucked out 5 Republican House members, he would run the risk, as he did with Jeff Sessions, of losing that majority, which would be fantastically stupid to make them like, Director of Veteran Affairs or Agriculture Secretary, as he's considering Massey for, apparently.
Right.
So, I mean, if he had a 50-seat majority, giving up 5 of them, even assuming that all 5 would lose the special elections, wouldn't be an issue. But if you've got a 4-seat majority and you pluck out 5, then that could be a calamity.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
because even if they do get replaced, it'll be several weeks. So that's several weeks
but
of waste.
Soros is going to put up like $1 billion for each of those seats, right?
Yeah.
If they aren't successful in stealing them in Arizona, Nevada, and California, where we're now counting on day 5, right? Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Yeah, going into day 5 in a few hours. It's absurd what's occurring there.
Right. So this is another Secretary of Defense pick that I've got in one of my chats here. A guy named Mike Rogers is being considered for the Defense Secretary. It says here, in case you were wondering, he's for continuing the disastrous Biden-Harris policy on the proxy war in Ukraine. He has openly and vocally criticized the Biden-Harris administration for not supporting Israel enough. He wants to go to war with Iran, another issue in which he is identical to the current disastrous Biden-Harris administration, and he wants to be confrontational with China in a military sense. So that is not a very good one. Ron Paul has put forth the suggestion that he should look at Doug McGregor, which Could do a lot worse than Doug McGregor.
Yeah, that's not
That's
a
for
particularly bad decision, to be honest. If that
Yeah.
were to occur, I mean, even Doug McGregor was Secretary of the Army, if not Secretary of Defense.
Right. Yeah, you could definitely do a lot of good work in either one of those positions. And there are a lot of good people with military backgrounds that could fill
The
Secretary
issue is whether or
of
not he can get
Defense.
rid of General Brown.
Hmm.
I mean, and that is within his remit to dismiss the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Because don't forget, even though in the last 40 years that's been seen as the top-ranking military, that's technically not true. That person is just the non-executive chairman who's supposed to be the senior military advisor to the president, but is not actually in the chain of command. And certainly Milley really tried to change that, didn't he?
Yeah, he definitely did. Let's see, what was some other stuff here? The other cabinet positions. The gal that he is as his
And they're
White
talking
House
about
chief-
Haggerty is apparently in consideration for defense. He's one of the senators from Tennessee.
Mhm.
And now this woman that he's put in as his first woman, as
Chief of
obviously,
staff.
strict misogynist, as the White House chief of staff. She is fantastically connected to Big Pharma through her co-chairwomanship or chairpersonship, whatever your wokeness you want to conjure up at this particular point. They were the public relations outfit in America for Gavi, the Global Alliance on Vaccination and Immunization, that was founded by Bill Gates, Gilead, who were the makers of Remdesivir, and Pfizer.
Okay. So knowing what we know about these groups and putting somebody like that in the chief of staff, he has said in a few of the interviews that he did before the election that keeping people like John Bolton at arm's length to one, to make sure that he knows what they're up to at all times, two, to keep them from being in any type of a think tank writing policy papers that would influence either legislation or policy
Yeah,
in
but
one way.
seriously, I mean,
But
think tanks are only as relevant as you give them credence.
right.
So you can have them blacklisted within the federal administration, and they don't get a moment's consideration. There's plenty of organisations like the Quincy Institute that doesn't get a look in.
Right. Yeah. But then he used John Bolton almost like a cudgel. Like he would go in for that's what he said. He said he would go into a meeting with some of these sometimes hostile states, and he would have John Bolton in the room with him, and it was kind of like an understanding between him. It's like, oh shit, John Bolton's
Well,
here.
yeah,
We're
but
gonna
I
get
heard-
bombs dropped on us.
I heard he pulled that shit in Afghanistan, but later they found out Afghanistan was like they were going to talk with him, and they saw John Bolton walk in, and they were like, "Oh, these guys are fucking crazy. We're not going to talk to him."
Right. So it works both ways, and with somebody like his chief of staff now, I'm on your side, Simon. I think this is probably a terrible choice, and I think that if anything, she's probably going to be on the side of the people who buttered her bread for their whole life.
It really makes you wonder whether or not she'll personally sign off on the security clearance for Kennedy to actually see assuming they did any vaccine testing for him to get all the raw data, which is what he said is his ultimate goal, so that he can sue the companies out of existence.
Right. So, is she still on their side? Has she had a change of heart? She knows where the bodies are buried. She's seen how the sausage is made. Could be like RFK's running mate, who was a creature of the CIA, wasn't she? That she saw how everything went down, and then she decided that she's going to kind of turncoat.
Well, she was married to 2 billionaires.
Mm-hmm.
And then went through a druidic ceremony for a third purported wedding, having already scarfed about $1 billion off the first 2 guys.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I don't hate it. I mean, she's a political insider, but
she only bought her way into that position, having had a couple of very profitable divorces, right?
Well, and I guess she was running his campaign also.
Are we still talking about Shanahan or the chief of staff?
The chief of staff.
Okay. Yeah, she was the co-chair or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
with Chris. What was it, Chris Savitas or something?
Right. Well, Roger
I
Stone
mean-
seems to trust her. So, I mean,
Well, yeah, he's obviously a fantastic judge of character.
that's true.
So, yeah, I guess time will tell, but certainly Trump is really, really sticking his neck out, and I don't really understand that. Even if you agree with every word he said, and I took the 10-point plan apart word by word, and there's a lot of problems that I have with it semantically, all right, if not with the intent.
Mhm.
But the timing stinks. Like, why would you not? Imagine if he had done that as his inauguration speech. It would be in the annals of history. It would be absolutely amazing. But kind of like ranting on TikTok 75 days before you take the oath doesn't seem very effective to me.
Yeah, I mean, is he building buzz? I mean, he doesn't really have to win any votes now. It's just, I get what you're saying. It is kind of an odd way to do it.
Yeah.
It is,
And
but
it's not just odd. I think it's fantastically dangerous.
it is dangerous. But at the same time, though, it's also kind of a bit of an insurance policy because he gets these things out there in the ether, tells everybody what he's planning on doing, and if they end up killing him, the amount of people will be like, "You took this from us. We are going to find out who you are. We are going to find out where you live."
We saw that with COVID there. They took everything from them. They took their job, and they did nothing.
Yeah, I don't know.
And the few people who did stand up on January 6th, he hasn't even pledged to pardon them.
Hmm.
I mean, if he was going to stick anything out, he could be saying, "I'm going to pardon Assange. I'm going to pardon Snowden, and I'm going to pardon all the J6 people."
Hell, let's go even a step further. Let's not just pardon Snowden. Let's make him the director of the NSA. Fuck it.
Yeah.
Let's go all in.
Well, I mean, who's the guy who lost his legs when they poisoned him? Was that what was that guy who used to work there? He was like the deputy head. And he turned on them, and they poisoned him, and he ended up having his legs amputated. Can't remember. There's Bamford, and then there's another guy. It's the other guy that I'm thinking about. Yeah, he's the guy they should make because he knows where all the bodies are buried because he was the deputy head.
Hell, he was almost one of the bodies.
Literally, yeah.
Well, and what about speaking of the people around Trump, what about this report that, Elon Musk was in a call with Trump and Putin or something?
No, Trump and Zelensky.
Trump and Zelensky.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems a little odd.
Well, for somebody who's not even going to officially be in the administration, but then neither is Kennedy, because neither of them want to be questioned under oath about all their personal circumstances or do all the background verifications, which it turns out for other people are now being leaked to the media by the Senate staffers, which is a huge break in protocols, like leaking the deliberations of the U.S. Supreme Court.
Mm-hmm.
But talking of the U.S. Supreme Court, I'm finding it horrifying that there's all this talk now about Sotomayor, who's got very severe diabetes and just turned 70, that they're now putting a massive squeeze on her to retire so that they can try and squeeze Harris through before 20th of January.
That is very, very risky because you've got a 50-50 split with the tiebreaker being Kamala Harris in the Senate by party. But two of those senators, being Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, are very amicable to putting a thumb in the eye of the Democrat machine, especially Joe Manchin.
Yeah.
They could drag it out the exact same way that they did with Merrick Garland until Inauguration Day. And then Trump would not only be in the position of potentially replacing Sam Alito and Clarence Thomas, who were talking about retiring during this term.
Sotomayor as well.
Sotomayor as well.
Yeah.
It's incredibly risky for them to be trying to hector her into a retirement this late in the game. There's no guarantee that they would be able to replace her with one of their own.
I completely agree with you, but I mean, obviously, you're talking about an organization that's previously made fantastically good decisions this year, right?
Oh yeah.
I could see Thomas retiring first. I mean, he's kind of got beat up a little bit in the media with his,
No, Sotomayor. Don't forget, she was absent like half the year. She was having video. They broke protocol to have her in on Zoom calls, and she was getting all the transcripts sent to a hospital room or something.
Yeah, that was something that I wasn't completely aware of. I mean, I wasn't even aware that she was that old.
I didn't either until I saw that story about where they're telling her trying to get her to retire.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But she may have left it late, exactly the same way as, for whatever reason, he went down. Biden left it late, and so time was basically too short just to finish the process.
I saw somebody call him Ruth Biden Ginsburg. Hung around too long and screwed him.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine if she ended up having something happen to her where she had to resign, or I'm not going to wish death on anybody, but if she died during the next Trump administration, he gets to replace her. It's
extremely likely that she'll be rendered medically incapable of fulfilling her duties, but it wouldn't be the first time that Supreme Court justices have hung on too long, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then you got John Roberts, who's like squishier than warm Jello.
Yeah, he's very suspicious, isn't he?
Yeah.
With his whole kids adoption and stuff as well.
Yeah, that dude definitely has some skeletons in his closet that make him a little bit more pliable.
Yeah, I find it a little concerning that Amy Coney Barrett's going to deliver the oath of office for Vance, because she's a real big government lover. There's no authoritarian scheme that she won't sign off on.
You think it's some Catholic solidarity going on between the two of them?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I forgot Vance converted to Catholicism.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's going to be interesting these final 2 months. What goes on?
Well, Biden's talking about keeping the administration functioning on all 8 cylinders, and I mean 8 of 8 as opposed to 8 of 12. Right until he hands over the baton, so to speak. And I see Trump's going to have lunch or dinner with him on Wednesday. I hope that he, instead of taking a bottle of wine, takes a pack of adult diapers. But
he needs to step down so Kamala can be the first black woman.
Well, there is talk of that as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
Somebody in one of my group chats said that it would be the biggest joke in the world if Biden stepped down and Kamala Harris became the 47th president just to fuck with Trump's merchandise.
Yeah.
That would be great. Why wouldn't Biden do that? That'd be awesome.
Well, no, but see, the other thing that it would potentially avoid breaking the precedent of a president pardoning themselves. Mm-hmm. So he could pardon his entire family, and then she could come in for like a week and pardon him.
Why doesn't that asshole pardon his son? Fuck it. What's he got to worry about?
I'm sure he will. I'm sure he will.
He said he's not going to. I mean, so fucking what if you go out looking scummy for pardoning your son? You're going to be dead in 4 years.
It's his entire family members and himself. There's like 11 of them who have been implicated by people like Peter. What is it? Peter Schweitzer.
Mm-hmm. It's not like he's going to have to live in shame for decades. That guy's got four good years left.
Good probably years. Or marginal years, right?
Yeah.
He's already got one foot in the grave as far as most people
why
are
wouldn't
concerned.
he? I mean, fuck the rest of the country. Look out for your family, dude.
I mean, but Trump made that mistake before, didn't he, with Hillary when he got in? Having done lock her up for a year, he decided it wasn't in the national interest. And the Democrats turned around and fucked him for 4 years. So there wasn't exactly any kind of like mutual reciprocity there, right?
Right. And, it's good that you mentioned that, because that might be at the tip of his mind, where it's like, okay, I tried to be magnanimous and a good winner. I didn't go after Hillary Clinton and the Clinton machine and the Bidens and the Obamas for all of the stuff that we're pretty sure that they're guilty of. I said that it would look bad and it would reflect bad on me, and it would reflect bad on the country to be petty. I'm just going to let it go. And they turned around and they threw everything at him, and so now he's got the reins of power again. Are we going to see reciprocity?
You see Ray's announced he's retiring.
I would retire and I would go to a country with non-extradition treaty.
Well, don't forget the guy from the vampire movies, Wesley Snipes, tried doing that, didn't he? He went to Namibia. And we said we're withholding $100 million, and they handed him over in like about 8 nanoseconds.
Right.
Somebody commented to me, Biden should pardon Trump for his stuff, and Trump should pardon Biden for.
Well, that's the whole point. They can't pardon him for the state stuff, only the federal stuff. And the federal stuff they're dropping anyway.
Yeah.
But all these civil cases that they have against him, plus this Georgia criminal case, which I think there's a good chance of being judicially dropped, if not by the DA. Older Letitia James is absolutely dead set to go down fighting on all those $500 million civil penalties, right?
Yeah.
Plus that really bizarre, woman who claimed that he groped her in the changing rooms of that department store in New York.
Yeah,
right?
that one was so weird. I mean,
Right. So we got this. We were talking about earlier how the Harris campaign raised $1 billion, and now they're 20 million in the hole. And so Trump put out on Twitter, he said, "I'm very surprised that the Democrats, who fought a hard and valiant fight in the 2020 presidential election, raising a record amount of money, didn't have lots of money left over. Now they are being squeezed by vendors and others. Whatever we can do to help them during this difficult period, I would strongly recommend we, as a party, and for the sake of desperately needed unity, do. We have a lot of money left over in that. Our biggest asset in the campaign was earned media, and that doesn't cost very much. Make America great again." So he's putting out this air of
yeah, but everyone's pretty stunned that he was suggesting that it transfer $20 million from Republican contributors just to zero out her debts. I'm sure she could write some books and go on the speaker tour around Europe.
Right.
And she could make $20 million in 20 weeks, no problem.
Right, but the thing that people are kind of saying in our little group chat over here is that apparently some of Harris's campaign workers haven't been paid for a couple of weeks.
Oh, it's not only the staffers; it's the transportation providers, the airlines, all this kind of stuff, right?
Right, yeah. So what this guy is suggesting over here in our group chat is like, how funny would it be if Trump personally, or the Republican Party, or even if he crowdfunded and his supporters paid off the $20 million of outstanding debts?
Yeah, I understand.
Like garbage Trump supporters donate money to pay off Kamala's campaign staff an outstanding vendor bill after overspending her $1 billion campaign budget by $20 million. Like,
yeah, personally, I disagree strongly with that idea.
It would. I mean, you could play it up as being like, oh, we're being magnanimous and even in
that
defeat.
Didn't work for him last time.
No, it didn't. Yeah. Or you could make it petty. You could be like, yeah, our garbage supporters are paying off your bills. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah, no, I don't. I mean,
or you just let them hang. Let them twist in the wind.
That's the problem. You're making, the same mistake, not necessarily personally, but in your premise, that lots of people have when, they get the kind of street interview with the serial killer's neighbors, and they're like, "Oh, he seemed a really nice guy," and we're like really surprised.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, you're not going to get any thanks. You're not going to get any reciprocity.
So does this mean the DNC's out of money then too?
Not necessarily, because that's separate from the presidential campaign.
Yeah, I think this is just a campaign.
But typically, presidential campaigns kick some money into the DNC. Does that mean she did, or the RNC or whatever? So does that mean she didn't have any leftover money to kick into
-20, and it's possibly as high as negative?
So that means next cycle, there's not really much of anything to kickstart.
Well,
the presidential race.
That's assuming that she would even transfer it, and there's questions about whether or not you can transfer it, or whether or not you have to return it to the donors.
I think
if you believe the polls and you thought that you were behind by less than 1%, you might as well go all in and spend everything, because if you succeed in becoming president, finding $20 million, somebody's just going to write a check.
Well, that's what I commented before you popped in. There was a DNC member that came on, and she was pissed because she was telling all these people it's within 1%, and they gave everything they could.
Yeah. And
she had to go back to them and talk to their face and apologize because, course, you're going to be pissed if you write a big fat check because it's within margin of error and it's a blowout.
Yeah.
So what's that going to? I think the DNC really fucked themselves because that tells me there wasn't any leftover money.
Yeah, but it's the same
And
people.
now they
that
pissed
the
off their
Biden
donors.
Was sharp as a Gerber knife for 3 years, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the people knew that they were lying to them, and then they allowed themselves to be lied to again.
They burned a lot of bridges on Harris. It just seems the shit that the Democrats do is just so bizarre.
No primary.
Yeah.
I mean, and Trump didn't really effectively attack her on policy. It was all personal. But I mean, she was real weak.
Well, she never really gave any policy. It was all vibes.
She did in the end. She finally,
started to. Yeah.
Put a platform on her website that wasn't there for the first month or something, right?
Well, she wouldn't distance herself from Biden.
Yeah.
They gave it seemed like every interview she went to, they asked her to do that, and she just wouldn't do it.
Well, once they had edited it 50%, right?
Right. That still hasn't come out, has it? The actual
CBS, the full transcript.
Yeah, that's going to be. I think Trump said he was going to sue the CBS for like $10 billion.
He already
or
is.
something like that.
He's already filed suit against them. Yeah.
That's ridiculous. I mean, go big or go home. And CBS should have known that they were going to get in trouble for that. But I mean, $10 billion. It's a lot of scratch.
Well, it worked for Dominion against Fox News.
And it worked for the Sandy Hook families against Alex Jones.
There you go.
Yep.
Talking of which, of course, he has the auction on the 13th, isn't he? What's that, Wednesday or something?
Yep, next Wednesday.
Yeah.
We'll see how that goes. Like I said, I haven't been able to listen for the last 2 weeks, so I'm kind of out of the loop as far as that's going. So
Candace, Candace Morris, who's often calling in to Harrison like you and I, she called in and ripped the hell out of Owen Schroyer and said that why was he saying only that the Democrats were baby killers when Trump had come up with the Operation Warp Speed, which they rolled down to 6-month-old, and that made him a baby killer as well. And then she challenged Owen about the time when Alex said that if Trump didn't repudiate Operation Warp Speed within 30 days, that he was going to campaign against him and then back down. And Owen claimed that had never, ever happened on the Alex Jones show.
Babylon B has a breakdown of some of Harris's spending. We have $500,000 for Lizzo's catering, $600 million on box wine, $70 million for accent coaches, $500,000 on punching bags for Doug Emhoff.
God bless the bee. Yeah. Going back to the InfoWars thing, though, it's like
No, it was real funny. So Owen, apparently he got super flustered, and everyone knows. Like Jones was really vocal about that, wasn't it? And then afterwards, he said that he spoke to Trump personally, and Trump literally told him to fuck off, and he backed down. And there was Owen not saying, "Oh well, he made the choice of lesser of two evils." He literally claimed it never happened in the first place, which is a real credibility issue because we all know that did happen.
Yeah, bring the receipts, man.
Yeah.
If she can get back in touch with it and bring the receipts, then apparently. But what's done is done.
Yeah.
We'll see how the auction goes. We'll see who ends up coming out on top, and we'll see the fate of InfoWars next week.
Well, I mean, it might be Musk versus Soros, eh?
Elon's going to merge it into X.
That would be something. But then there's also a lot of chatter online that if InfoWars gets sold, Don Jr. is seriously saying make Alex Jones the press secretary for 2 weeks to a month.
Bullshit. That's total bullshit.
That would be hilarious.
It wouldn't. It would be a national embarrassment. I mean, within the first 2 hours, Jones would have his shirt off, maybe screaming in some Algerian journalist woman's face or something. It wouldn't be a good look at all. So,
I'd like to
That's
see
fair.
Tucker Carlson do it, but he's being so successful on his own platform. I mean, why would
There's
you
no
take
way.
the demotion?
That would cost him like $50 million personally to do that. I can't see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see Carrie Lake possibly doing it, but she's going to hate within weeks of being told to lie every 15 minutes.
I don't know. Did she win her bid for Senate?
No, they're still printing out ballots, aren't they, for Gallagher?
Yeah. I guess so. It seems
I mean,
kind of weird.
The guy abandoned his heavily pregnant wife and like a week before she was due to give birth to run off of his secretary. What even crazy pinko woman would vote for some guy who did that, right?
Oh,
And
man,
let's see.
he's winning it.
Arizona's at 87% in, and Kerry Lake is down by 50,000 votes.
Yeah, which is what, like 1.5% or something, right?
Printer go
Yeah.
burr.
45,000 votes. So yeah.
Doesn't look good, and that's weird that they would put so much effort into that race, particularly.
I was telling her staff directly the day she's. In fact, I even pointed out that legally they couldn't get signatures, but they could get names, addresses, and phone numbers for people who would sign a ballot recall the day that it was legally possible. And I said, go for the recall on Hobbs. Don't put all your money on Senate. And lo and behold, I mean, why should they listen to me? But I did read the law like really carefully, check with people, and they're like, you are technically correct. They could get like 1 million names, addresses, and phone numbers, and then just call all those people and literally just send a fleet of Ubers out to like pick up signed paperwork.
Mhm.
And she decided not to do that. She decided to wait, and here she is, a second big time loser.
Yeah. It's a shame, too, because she seems like she'd be really good at any of those positions. But if you got to put her in as the press secretary, then...
Yeah, but that does involve a lot, lying literally every day.
Yeah. It is the press secretary, a
It
professional
looks,
liar.
it looks like they're pretty much calling it for it just because how the ratios have gone with the amount of votes outstanding. There's no way she can
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that Gallagher guy, he really is a creep. I mean, a real, like, communist scumbag. So, but, Arizona is messed up. The fact that Maricopa County's got, what have they got, like 60% of the population in one county? It's absolutely bizarre. Why hasn't that county been broken into 10 pieces? Ludicrous.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, absolutely ludicrous. And that
Arizona's a mess.
the Maricopa, those two guys, what is it, Richter and that other guy? I mean, they are dodgy as all hell, right?
Yep.
So I don't know. I mean, the same as Georgia, they've had a chance to get rid of Raffensperger. They've had a chance to get rid of Kemp. They haven't taken it.
Well, we won't have to worry about Arizona much longer with global warming, right? It'll just start cooking the place, and people will have to move out of there.
You think it's going to be like Fahrenheit 451? It's just going to self-ignite?
Yeah.
Yep.
Colorado River will dry up, and it's going to get too hot there, and people will be forced to leave.
Yep. Well, we're a little over an hour right now. I'd say just keep watching Twitter and Truth Social for any other spicy takes that President-elect Trump puts out there on policy positions. Watch behind the scenes to look for any cabinet people. Let's see here. We went over his chief of staff, who's questionable, and Kash Patel is being looked at seriously as CIA director. That could be really interesting. He's already been talking about declassifying the JFK in entirety, as well as several other.
Whose staff was he on? He was on somebody else's staff, wasn't he?
He was on Trump's. He was in the Trump administration last time, but he did something minor. I don't remember exactly what it was, but him as CIA director could be very, very interesting. But yeah, you got Thomas Massey potentially being looked at for Secretary of Agriculture.
He's asked for it. He admits he's asked.
Oh, that reminds me. Trump had put that in one of his videos. He wants to move federal offices. Like, it makes perfect. Why is the Department of Ag in fucking Washington D.C.?
Yeah, move it out here to Kansas or someplace else where agriculture is actually done.
Department of Forestry, again in
Pacific
Washington,
Northwest.
they're like, well, it's gotta be there because pick up a phone and call them. Fuck, do a Zoom meeting. You know,
Yeah, we have the technology now. It made sense kind of 150 years ago, but now not so much.
yeah, when you had to go office to office, but
Well, if
no
we had the
reason.
technology, we could appoint the $6 million man, right?
Exactly.
So that is a big one that I think it's overlooked of moving those. You know, breaking. That's another way you break up
Britain
the
has
deep
been
state.
doing that. They've been moving civil service offices to Manchester, Hull, and Birmingham, and other UK hellholes.
And how's that worked for them?
Not particularly well, but I mean, it is possible.
Well, what's one city in Britain I mean, they don't really have. I don't know enough about Britain, I guess, but just what I see on Google Maps, it doesn't seem like there's large agricultural areas in the southern part of the country.
Well, no, they seem to be doing their utmost to depopulate the land in the south of Britain with their new decisions to, effective April 2026, impose inheritance tax on family farms, which basically means they can't be transferred from one generation to another. They'll have to be sold to big ag.
Oh,
Yeah,
well.
BlackRock swooping in to buy up the English countryside. I guess.
British food subsistence, or what do you call it?
I just feel so bad for the English. If you watch Lotus Eaters,
domestic production
Mhm.
has gone from 2/3 to 50%. They say it's by the end of this parliament, it's going down to 1/3. So, I mean, that's catastrophic if they think they're going to fight a war against the Russians and they can't even feed themselves.
yeah, the Lotus Eaters they pretty much come to the conclusion, you know, Britain's done, but we just love our country and we can't leave. So they're just riding it out.
They're kind of I don't know if they're like half serious or what, but they're kind of drafting Jeremy Clarkson to kind of lead the charge against that farm inheritance tax that you were just talking about there, because Jeremy Clarkson, you know, he's the guy from Top Gear. You know, people who might not know who he is. He's the guy who used to be on Top Gear, and he had a show, or he still has a show called Clarkson's Farm over there, where he decided he was going to, you know, just buy a farm and start farming, and the whole show basically revolves around the red tape and bureaucratic bullshit that these farmers have to go through, and he's just kind of shedding light on the British farmers' plight at the hands of their government.
And most of them are working 7 days a week, and their income's like $20,000-$30,000 a year.
Yeah,
that show. The margins over there, I mean, margins here in America for farmers are pretty razor thin. The margins over there, it's like you have to do everything right, and you might be able to afford seed for next year.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. But he's doing the Lord's work, helping the farmers over there.
But I don't know. He's perceived as a bit of a loose cannon. I don't think he has that much of a political following, to be honest. I mean, if the Reform Party really embraced him and made him agricultural spokesman for the Reform Party, that would be helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's got more of the soft power than the hard power. He doesn't necessarily have a political following, but he's a pop culture icon.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting next 100 days. It's going to be an interesting next 4 years, both here and across the pond at our special ally over in Great Britain and around the world. So keep your eyes on that.
I forgot. We had so much to talk about. Simon, are you going to talk about Zelensky and him announcing he's made his first 100 homemade missiles on your show this week?
I mean, I'm more concerned about the $56 billion they seem to be trying to shovel to him by the end of January.
All right, so tune into Simon's show this week to catch that. I mean, Ukraine is kind of grasping at straws to figure something out here, and they'll cover it over there at Weaponized News on Rumble.
We'll be doing a show on Sunday, and I'll be going through I'll be reading out the Dugin thing and then going through it sentence by sentence. And there is plenty of other news. They just had the Russia-Africa First Ministerial is going on this weekend. More on the Putin speech. Xi just had a state visit from the new president of Indonesia. They've done $10 billion worth of deals and enhanced their comprehensive strategic partnership. And the other thing that we've got to keep real close attention on is finally, after many delays since March, including obviously the Iranian president dying in that helicopter crash along with his foreign minister, is this comprehensive cooperation agreement between Russia and Iran that they were supposed to have signed at Kazan, and then supposedly the Iranians asked for a delay in order that there could be a standalone ceremony as opposed to doing it on the sidelines and not getting so much publicity.
You guys are covering that tomorrow?
No, we'll cover it as soon as we get an idea it's going to happen. But the other big thing that's happening on the 11th, which is on Monday, is the second Organization of Islamic Cooperation and Joint League of Arab States meeting happen on Veterans Day. So there is a great deal. There is a great deal going on, and that's why we're doing kind of like 6 days a week, and in many cases putting out 1 or 2 documentaries per week. And we've been working really hard. I slept till like about noon today. I was just frazzled.
Yeah, I don't blame you, man. You guys do put in a lot of work over there for what you do. And if anybody's watching here who is not subscribed to Weaponized News and is not following Weaponized News and at Simon from Flory 2 on Twitter, get off your ass and do the right thing.
You guys follow me, but you both know that whilst I very much appreciate that vote of confidence, it can be very depressing for people. So I often say to people, you can't handle like 100 bad news stories a day, which is really challenging.
Mm-hmm. So
then,
so I'll
dip into the account morning and evening, and then you can back out whenever you kind of like max out on the bad news.
I was gonna say you could balance that out. You go over and you follow Simon and Weaponized News, and then you follow like 2 or 3 cute kitten picture profiles, and just kind of level things out. Get your dopamine hit in there along with your black pill.
You're more likely to find cat recipes on my.
Great. It's too much time in Asia there. So
I'm in Haiti.
In Haiti. Thanks for joining us, everybody, with our election wrap up. Thanks for coming on, Simon. As you said, catch him over on Weaponized News. And happy Veterans Day to all you veterans out there from us veterans here. And go get your free Applebee's or Chili's or whatever the hell. So see you next week and stay honky.